Hello again. I wonder how many people remember the fuss and bother 40 years ago when President Reagan announced the Strategic Defence Initiative, which became known colloquially, of course, as Star Wars. The idea of firing weapons into space and setting off explosions above the Earth's atmosphere was regarded as horrifying, and there were a lot of protests about the whole idea. It was suggested that such a system would breach the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, to which America, Russia and Britain are all signatories, and Reagan was urged to consider his plans again, just in case they triggered a new arms race. Fast forward 40 years, and nobody seems in the least bothered anymore about such things. On Halloween, a number of ballistic missiles were fired from Yemen. They were aimed at Israel, which is over 2,000 kilometres away. The missiles left the Earth's atmosphere and travelled in a low Earth orbit heading for Israel. The Israelis fired their new anti-ballistic missile system, the Arrow 3. Their missile also flew beyond the atmosphere and into outer space, where it encountered a Yemeni missile and exploded near it. This was the first time ever that a military action had been fought in space, and yet hardly anybody even noticed. The reason is very simple. Since the Russians attacked Ukraine last February, we in the West have been busily supplying them with our latest sophisticated weapons. Of course, we've stopped doing that now. We gave them all those tanks and missiles not because anybody seriously thought that Ukraine was going to win a war against Russia, but because it was the perfect opportunity to see how our hardware would do if we ever had to use it in an actual shooting war ourselves. Just as the Germans tested out their Stuka dive bombers on Guernica during the Spanish Civil War, so too we were trying out all our latest stuff in Ukraine. The results have been interesting, but having conducted the live tests, we've now stopped sending the Ukrainians anything else. There's no point. We know now how our stuff matches up against the Russian weapons systems. Besides, the war has now ground to a halt, and the sooner it's ended, the better. That's why America and the countries of Western Europe are urging Ukraine to reach an agreement with Russia. They're obviously not going to be able to drive the Russians out of their country. They never were. So it'd be better for everybody if they just gave in and the whole business was forgotten about. In precisely the same way, the war in the Middle East is proving of inestimable value in seeing how effective anti-missile systems such as Israel's Iron Dome and Arrow interceptors are in real battlefield conditions. The Iron Dome is of course a souped-up version of the American Patriot system, which was pretty useless as we saw during the First Gulf War. Certainly, no other country has ever intercepted a missile in space as the Israelis did on October the 31st, and this is all being viewed with great excitement by Western nations. Forget for a moment whether you support the Ukrainians or Israelis, Russians or Hamas. That hardly matters, really. What we are seeing currently is a rehearsal of larger wars which will be coming all too soon. The Chinese invasion of Taiwan, the joint American and Israeli attack on Iran, and so on. What we are now watching are warm-up acts for the big matches. Think the Luftwaffe attacking Guernica in 1937 and the Condor Legion, and you'll soon get the idea.